Hey guys, I had some last minute technical issues here today. Trying to get set up with separate mics for saxophone and speaking, and then some hotkeys moving between those. And then OBS started lagging because I had some like plugin that was, long story, but now it's working. So I figured it out just in time. So a bit stressed here because everything just stopped. Everything was lagging and nothing was working. But Kex is in. Marin should be in real soon. And hopefully we'll see some other viewers join in after a while. Thanks, man. I'm new to this live streaming stuff, and I'm getting more and more complicated setups. So I'm trying to figure everything out. But now it should be working. I didn't get the hotkeys to work, so I'll have to switch manually between the sax mic and the speaking mic. But yeah, we're here to talk about approach tones. Let's dive in. I can do this. That's pretty cool. So for approach tones, in order to get going, you have to first understand chord tones, because approach tones all comes from chord tones. And the thing about chord tones is that you can make a pretty good solo by just playing chord tones. Like that's the way the early improvisers were doing it. The jazz improvisation started with jazz players playing a melody, and then they wanted to play more, but the melody had already been played, so they started filling around the melody and embellishing the melody. And that's how we got improvisation, by people starting to embellishing the melody and taking that further and further away from the melody. And then in the 1930s, people like Lester Young, Coleman Hawkins, they started playing more chord tone solos that weren't really related to the melody. So chord tone improvisation, that's like one of the oldest forms of improvisation. And it's also what will really connect your playing to the harmony of the tune you're playing. If you're playing chord scales, you won't necessarily be hearing the harmony. But if you're playing the chord tones, you'll be outlining the harmony. And I just wanted to show you this. I'm going to first play just some scales up and down that are all within the harmony of All the Things You Are. All the notes are the right notes. And then in the next example, I'm going to play the same stuff, but focusing on the chord tones and landing on the chord tones. And you'll be able to hear the difference between just playing the chord scales and actually playing the chord tones and nailing the harmony. Right, so that's just playing the chord scales up and down, but you can't hear any harmonic movement there. You're just hearing the same scale, because a lot of these chords share the same chord scale. So when I now go to play more chord tones and thinking less of the scale, it'll be a different story. Right, can you guys hear that? That's you're hearing the harmony underneath. You're hearing the chords of All the Things You Are. I was playing the same notes in both examples. It's just in the second one I was focusing on the chord tones. By the way, let me know if the levels between the sax and the vocals and the spoken word is okay, because I had some technical issues and I did some last minute adjustments. I hope it's okay. Just let me know in chat. So yeah, that shows you the importance. Great. That shows you the importance of knowing the chord tones to the song. If you just know the chord scales, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to play something that sounds like the harmony of the tune. And we're going to get to approach tones, but I think this is like a really important concept to understand first before we start moving into that. So, you know, the 1930s, that was like the chord tone improvisers era. And then you move into the bebop era in the 1940s, and that's when people would start to go more into chord scales. But like I just illustrated, chord scales will not necessarily sound like the harmony. So it gets more complicated because you need to land on the chord tones, on the heavy beats, and all kinds of other stuff in order to play good bebop. So, you know, the technical exercise I would suggest doing before you move into any approach tone exercises is to work on arpeggiating chords in all 12 keys. Do your major chords, do your minor 7 chords, do minor 7 flat 5 chords, dominant 7 chords, learn all diminished 7 chords, learn all the different kinds of chords in all 12 keys, just as a technical workout to prepare you for playing chord tone solos or approach tone exercises. So let me illustrate that. So that was just minor 7 chords through the circle of fifths. Do that slowly with a metronome until you have it down. And then you start doing it on tunes. So for all the things you can do this, you can do that same exercise, but do it on each chord of the tune. But it's important to have done that chord practice first. So when you have all of this down, you know, you can play all the chords through all the 12 keys. You can play it over the tune. Then you move into playing inversions of the chords. And an inversion is basically just you start on the third and go up to the root. Instead of going 1, 3, 5, 7, you can go 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 3, 5, 7, 1. So do that through all 12 keys and do that over the chords of the tunes you're working on. Or you can do, instead of inversions, you start on the third and you go up to the ninth. So that's root position, and then you start on the third and go to the 9. So in all the things you are, that would be. Right? So here you have a whole bunch of exercises that you can do that will prepare you for the approach tone exercises. I have a PDF example of this that I'm going to pull up. Since you guys are my Patreon subscribers, you've probably seen this already. This is the blues workout that I shared a few weeks back, which is just a really strong way to show you that only chord tones, or mostly chord tones, can create a solo that sounds pretty complicated, that sounds like more than chord tones. It's not just arpeggios here. And this is what you get when you're practicing your arpeggios in inversions and up to the 9th, and when you're like comfortable playing any chord tone at any time. So I'm gonna play this blues workout for you if you haven't checked it out yet. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, all the notes in red, those are the chord tones. And the other notes, those are the approach tones. I think all the other notes here are functioning as approach tones. Really notes that just lead into the chord tones. And that is why as I'm playing this, you can really hear the harmony, because I'm playing chord tones and approach tones into chord tones. So I think we'll leave that there for now and start talking about, you know, the actual approach tone exercises. because I have another PDF later where we'll go into a lot more depth. But yeah, so the basic concept of approach tones is like you heard in the solo, it's to surround the chord tones, to emphasize the chord tones. And this is one of the first videos I created for my social medias. It was my first viral video ever, because I thought this was like a concept that most people knew, but apparently not. And this is coming from an old Berkeley teacher of mine called Rick DiMuzio. But he learned it from Joe Viola, which was like the old saxophone legend at Berkeley. Back in the days, you had two saxophone teachers. It was Joe Viola or Joe Allard. That was like the schools of saxophone playing in the US. And Joe Viola, he was at Berkeley. And my old teacher, George Garcon, had him as his teacher. And Rick DiMuzio, the other teacher I had at Berkeley, he also had Joe Viola, I think. Or at least this concept stems from Joe Viola. And that's just me giving credit to where credit is due. So Joe Viola, shout out for this concept. And it's similar to other concepts like melodic cells, and you have a lot of kinds of names for approach tones, but basically they're all really the same. They're just explained a bit differently or practiced a bit differently. Excuse me. So the reason that I, in my original video, focused on minor 7 chords first is because all the notes in the minor 7 chord scale, the Dorian scale, they have a whole step as an available tension above each chord tone. So let me show you that. And what this means is that we can do what's called a diatonic approach from above into all of these chord tones. Let me know if you have any questions here, because I don't know if I'm going too fast or too slow. I don't know like what level you all are at. So if anything's unclear, just please tell me. I tend to go a little bit fast sometimes, I think. So, let me know. No, not all chords have a whole step as an available tension. Like for this, I'm playing now on my tenor, in tenor key, a G minor 7 chord. So that's G, B flat, D, F. The B flat has a C. That's a whole step. But if you make that a major chord, G, B, D, F sharp, then that B, the next scale degree, is a C, a half step. Yeah, a diatonic step simply means off the scale. So whatever the next degree in the scale is, that's a diatonic step above. And with the minor 7 chord, the diatonic step above for each chord tone is also coincidentally a whole step. Right. So what that means is that we can do a diatonic step above and go chromatically down to the chord tone, and that will line up. So let me show you that. So that means I'm going to do diatonic step above a chord tone, chromatically down to a chord tone. Now, if that was a major chord, I would run into issues. Let me show you. As you can hear, there are no diatonic whole steps above some of the notes in the major chord. So we'll get to what we're going to do in that case a little bit later. But for now, let's focus on the minor 7 chord. I'm going to grab some water. Hang on a second. I have small kids, so life these days is pretty much I always have a cold, or I'm always getting over a cold, or I'm always in the starting phase of a new cold. That's life with kids. That part sucks, but the rest is great. So, for the minor 7 chord, we can do what's called a chromatic approach from below into all the chord tones. That sounds like this. That was a chromatic step below each chord tone. So F sharp into G, A into B, C sharp into D, and E into F. Now we can put that together with a diatonic step above each chord tone. So now we're getting somewhere. This is already starting to sound a bit more interesting. And now let's add that chromatic movement from the diatonic step above and down to the chord tone. Everybody following along? So that's how you do it on the minor 7 chords. And there's other ways to do it. You can flip it around and do the chromatic step, no, the diatonic step from above, chromatically down, and then go through the chromatic passing note below and into the chord tone. That would sound like this. Or you can do this. Or this. Or this. So when you practice that on every single minor chord, because you've already practiced the minor chords from the chord tone exercises we did. So you should have all the arpeggios down. That's why you need to practice those first. And then you practice the approach notes into all the minor chords. And we start with the minor chords because they're relatively easy to apply this exercise to. They don't need a lot of tweaking in order to work. So do that to the minor chords. I have a PDF of this. It's on the Patreon. If you go to the shop, you can get the PDF, and this is the basics of this concept explained. So I'm not going to keep dwelling on this now. I'm going to move on, but you can always go back and reference that if you have any more questions about this. So now let's start talking about other chords. What do you do in those cases when the diatonic step above is not a whole step? Well, then you need to figure out another way to do it. So let's start with the major 7 chord. That was chromatic step below, diatonic step above, and to the chord tone. And that works just like with the minor chord. We got a question here. Let's deal with that. When reading chords, I find it difficult to calculate what notes are in the enclosure. I often guess. How do I practice that? Well, you have to learn the chord scales for all these chords. For instance, in a 2-5-1 progression, if you say now we're playing on the G minor, so let's make that the 2 in the 2-5-1 progression. So G minor 7 to C7 to F major 7. All those 3 chords take the F major 7 scales, except the 2 chord, the G minor 7, takes the F major 7 scale starting from G. And then the C7 scale would be F major 7, but starting from C. So that means it's called G Dorian, C Mixolydian, and F Ionian. Those are the modes, and the modes are used for the 2-5-1 progression in major. And that's how you find what notes are in the scale. So when you know what notes are in the scale, you know what a diatonic step for that enclosure will be. When it's a chromatic step, that's just a half step, so that's the same whether or not it's in the scale. Right? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I'm going to move on. Oh, excuse me. And then we can go back to this. But yeah, for that major 7 chord, if you want to do the chromatics going into the chord tone, you can't do that from above because it's only a half step. You could say that you're just going to do a double chromatic from above, which means just go for that whole step and play chromatically down. But as I will show you now, that sounds... if you think it sounds good, you can do it, but in my ears, it doesn't sound as clean. It sounds okay, you know, you can totally practice that too. But for the case of, doing it diatonically, to make it sound more diatonic, what we can do to the notes that do not have an available diatonic whole step above, we can go to an available diatonic whole step below. So in this case, on the G major 7 chord, for the B, the third of the chord, that's the note we're struggling with because it doesn't have that diatonic step above. We go to the diatonic step below, which is A, and then we go chromatically up. So let me illustrate. And here we have to do the same to the major 7. Right? It gets a little complicated, but as you will find videos about this on my pages as well, about all these variations, how to do it on minor 7 flat 5 chords, how to do it on dominant chords, and etc. When it comes down to it, it's really up to you how you want to practice it. I'm just showing you a way to make it work. But if you prefer the sound of that whole step above, even if it's not diatonic, you can totally go for that. The important thing is the chord tones. Let's do minor 7 flat 5 chords as well, because that also gets complicated. For the minor 7 flat 5 chords, you can use... there are 2 scales basically that I think are appropriate when we're talking like theoretical chord scales for the minor 7 flat 5 chord. And that would be the Locrian scale, which is the 7th degree of the major scale. So for a G minor 7 flat 5, since we're doing G, let's keep doing G, that would be A flat major 7 or A flat major scale starting from G. Sorry. Now the other alternative you have here is to use the natural 9. The Locrian scale has a flat 9 as an available tension. But you can use a natural 9 as the available tension, and that will give you this scale. Now, me personally, I love that sound. Like the natural 9 on a minor 7 flat 5 chord is great. So let's stick with that for this exercise. And the good thing about having that natural 9 as an available tension on the minor 7 flat 5 chord is that it's a whole step above the root. So we can do the whole step or diatonic step above, and that is a whole step, and go chromatically down to the root. So let's see how we can solve the minor 7 flat 5 chord now with the approach tone exercises, going from half step above, diatonic step above, chromatically down to the chord tone. That works. So as long as we do the natural ninth on the minor 7 flat 5 chords, we can do the approach tone exercise. I need some more water, guys. So I hope that makes sense. We could go into dominant chords and all that other stuff, but let's move on for now. And we can do some more questions about that later if you want to hear more. But the next step to this is to start applying the approach tone concept to standards. And this is really when you get to be creative with it, because on standards, you're not going to have enough time to play all the approaches into all the notes in all the chords. Like some places, there's going to be a 2-5 that's fit into one bar or even half a bar. And then you have to figure out a fun way to include the approach tone exercise. So what I would suggest is just sit down, have some fun with it, write out some approach tone solos over standards, and see how you can fit in as many approach tones as possible. And see, do it the way it sounds good to you. Is my camera lagging? It's lagging here in OBS, so I just want to check if it's lagging for you guys as well. It's frozen. Let's try this. Oh, I think it's the... camera froze. Hang on, guys. This is the day of technical difficulties. I have no idea what happened. Okay, give me 2 minutes to fix this. I think I know what I need to do. We should be coming back right about now. There we go. Yeah, it was the EOS webcam utility app that got stuck. So yeah, I think we're good now. Yeah, everything's working. Cool, cool. This is a learning curve for me, but I think it's going pretty good. It's a bit complicated, but I'm figuring it out. So where was I? I was going to talk about how to apply this to standards. Yeah. So when you go to put it into a standard, you could do just time stretching the chords so that you can fit the entire exercise into each chord. So let's do All the Things You Are, one of my favorite examples because it goes through a lot of chords and it's a relatively easy tune to play over. So instead of playing, if you're familiar with the word harmonic rhythm, that means like the rhythm of the harmony. So the rhythm of All the Things You Are is like G minor 7, 3, 4, C minor 7, 3, 4, F7, 3, 4, B flat major 7, 3, 4, E flat major 7, 3, 4, E minor 7, A7, D major 7. Right? So that's the harmonic rhythm is usually a whole note per chord, but then in the end it goes to a half note per chord. So what we will do to be able to do the approach tone exercise without too much stress as we're getting started is to just play every chord for as long as you need to complete the exercise. Don't worry about the harmonic rhythm. So let me show you that. Couple of mistakes in there. You get the point. I got 5 hours of sleep tonight because my kids woke up early, but I can still do it pretty good, I think. So that's how you do it without thinking about like the time of the tune. You still do this with the metronome to make sure you're not cheating on yourself by slowing down in the harder parts. So do it with the metronome, but forget about the harmonic rhythm. And then, as you're getting comfortable doing this, you can start introducing the harmonic rhythm. But then you have to move on. When the chord changes, you're not going to be able to finish each chord tone exercise. And it gets a lot more challenging. I don't know. I'll try. I don't know if I'll be able to do it that well. One, two. So yeah, I did it mostly into the root and the third. In some place I mixed it up. I played it into the third and the fifth instead. So, you know, this is a way to get the approach tone exercises put into practice over the tune, over the chords, and over the harmonic rhythm of the tune. So the first example was no harmonic rhythm. The second example was with the harmonic rhythm. So let's take a look at how to like go deeper, because this is, if you do this, you're coming really far into the approach tone universe. You can totally focus on thirds and sevenths because, as you're probably aware, the root and the fifth are the most boring chord tones. The third and the seventh are what really will make a chord sound like that chord. They're like the better chord tones. All chord tones are equal, but the third and the seventh are a little bit better. You know? Happy Pride, by the way. So, third and the seventh, you can totally do that. So, you know, as you start to get this down, start to be able to play the approach tone exercises over the standard freely, comfortably, then you can start, you know, being a little bit more loose with it. And I'm gonna pull up something fun here. I had so much fun making this thing, and I think it came out pretty killing. This is me trying to write a solo using as many approach tones as possible. So this is all approach tones, pretty much. Some other stuff, but I'm gonna go through the entire thing and explain to you what I did here. And this is on the tune Stablemate. It has a lot of changes. It changes all the time, which is why it's a really fun tune to do this to. I'm gonna play, I broke it up into 3 parts. So I'm gonna play you this first part, and then I'm gonna go through it and explain to you what's going on, okay? One, two, a 1, 2. Yeah, so that's there we go. That's where it stops. This first part. So basically, as you can see on the first chord, F sharp minor 7, we're going into the third of that chord, and A. That's the minor third of F sharp minor 7. So what do? I do the diatonic step above, chromatic down, and then I go to the chromatic step below, and I land on the third of the chord. That's one of the exercises we just talked about. And now I don't have any more time really to play more approach tones on that chord because I already need to be preparing for the next chord. So now as I'm landing on that A, that's like, okay, enough F sharp minor for me. I'm moving on to the 5 chord, the B7 chord. And let's do an approach into the third. But that third of the B7 chord, that's a D sharp, and the available tension above that D sharp is a half step. So we can't do the same as we did with the F sharp minor, do the diatonic above, chromatic down. So we have to flip it around or do something different. So we're doing the diatonic step above to the diatonic step below, and then chromatically up to the third. So I'm going to play up to that point to show you. I don't know about you guys, but I'm hearing a 2-5 there. I'm hearing those chords change. And all we did was to play approach tones into the third of the minor 7 chord and into the third of the dominant 7 chord. Just like Marin. By the way, Marin, is that how I pronounce your name? Because I've done the Marin he's in the monthly check-in tier, so he's getting some monthly check-ins with me. And I haven't pronounced his name yet because I don't know how to pronounce it. So I'm asking him now if it's Marin. Let me know, man. But yeah, he's talking about thirds and sevenths. And what we're doing here is we're playing into the thirds. And that's really outlining the harmony of that 2 chord and that 5 chord. So moving on, we're doing the same thing into F minor 7. Now I'm going to the 5th because, you know, that 5th is sitting pretty close to the third of the last chord. I was just doing this by ear, by the way. It's not like I'm thinking all the time about what to do and stuff. I'm just trying to do as many approach tones as possible and doing this stuff by ear. So now I'm going into the 5th of the F minor 7 chord. And here I'm doing diatonic below, chromatically up, and then going to the diatonic above. So you're starting to see a pattern here of what's going on. And after that, there's another approach, chromatic below, diatonic above, chromatically down to the 7th of the B flat 7 chord. Again, thirds and sevenths sound usually better than roots and fifths. Roots and fifths are like boring. Thirds and sevenths are cool. And then I go out of the approach tones for a little bit because I felt like it was getting a bit obnoxious and I wanted to do something different. So now we're just sort of resolving that to the E flat major 7 chord. And you could you could argue that some of this is approach tones as well, but like the E flat. Actually, no, forget about that. So do something different into the E flat chord, and then we go to the D7 sharp 5. I decided to sort of take that motive from the E flat major 7 chord and develop it into the D7 sharp 5. So this is you can call it an approach from the G to the F sharp. That's a chromatic approach from below on the D7 chord. And then we basically move into a lot of the same stuff here. So let me play a little bit further for you. You see that right there? I'm not resolving to that chord tone as we're used to from the exercise. In the exercise, we're resolving everything in the same place. Here, I'm starting to shift it so that it resolves on a different beat than the other stuff. There's a couple of passing tones there in between just to connect this nicely. Then moving on to the A flat major 7, more, of the standard approaches. Again, on the A flat major there, I just played a little scale down because too many approach notes would get a bit obnoxious at this point. Another approach into the A minor 7 flat 5. That's a diatonic step from below, actually, into that third of the A minor 7 flat 5. The B flat, that's the flat 9, so that's an available tension on A minor 7 flat 5 if you're doing the Locrian scale. More of the same approaches, really. This is all pretty standard stuff, but we're going to get into some cooler stuff on this next page here. So still here, it's on the F minor 7, just an arpeggio in triplets to sort of resolve it nicely before heading into the bridge. And then on the bridge, I wanted to simplify it, really like show that this is approach tones. So here I'm doing approaches into different chord tones, but I'm shifting it around, resolving to different beats, and trying to make it like a balance of landing on the beat, off the beat. And you'll hear it when I play it. It sounds pretty cool, I think. There we go. And a nice little quotation of the melody there in the end, if you're familiar with that. So yeah, this is getting somewhere. These are all the standard approaches into chord tones. They're diatonic steps above, chromatics below, all the standard stuff just used creatively. And it shows you the power of this exercise. If you're getting these sounds into your ears and into your fingers, and you are so comfortable with them that you can start to get creative, you're really opening up a whole world of new possibilities. Let's move on to the next page because, like I said, this is pretty standard. Here we're getting into something fun, I think. Let me play it for you first. I'm struggling with that pinky movement in the last part there. When I was writing it, I was like, oh, this is going to be hard, but I went for it because I liked it so much. Now, at this point, the first part of this last A section, it's almost like a diminished lick there. But it's all thinking approach tones. It's like you can get there from approach tones. And then moving into more approach tones, more approach tones. But what I wanted to get to was that ending, because I'm not playing approaches into the chord tones. On that E flat major 7 chord, I wanted to highlight the Lydian sound. So instead of playing approaches into the chord tones of E flat major, I played approach tones into F major. So I'm playing approach tones into tension 9 to tension sharp 11 and tension 13. You don't have to play approach tones into chord tones when you're getting to this point. When you get into this level, you can play it into any note that you want to highlight, even if it's the 9 or if it's the 13. So like the power of approach tones, of what they really do is to emphasize other notes by not playing the notes, by surrounding them, really. Like that's a good thing to show you, actually, how I can make your ears hear a note without playing it. Right? That's why this concept is working, because your ears are already at that next note. We're targeting a note ahead of time. And the ears are really powerful this way. They will hear stuff. Oh yeah, that's like an upper structure, the F on the E flat. F triad on E flat major 7 becomes sharp 11 with 9, sharp 11, 13. Let me play that for you slowly. That's a nice triad pair too, if you want to play around with triad pairs. The triad from the 1 of the chord and the triad from the 2 of the chord. That becomes a really nice Lydian sound. But yeah, that's what I was going for here, to show you that approach tones can be used in a whole lot of different ways. I like this solo so much, I'm going to play it again. And then afterwards, you can ask me any questions about the solo if you have any. I love that. I don't know about you guys. Toot my own horn here. But yeah, that shows you really like the power of approach tones. How you can simply play approach tones and make it sound a whole lot like the harmony of a relatively complicated tune. Like stablemates, if I play you the roots of the song, it moves pretty quickly. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. That's the harmonic rhythm. It's pretty fast, and yet I can outline that harmony by using approach tones and chord tones. So now that we have practiced the approach tones, we know how to apply them to standards. We have them in our fingers, we have them in our head, in our ears. You probably written some solos yourself using this concept. Now it's time to really break free, to just go improvise and don't even think, just let that concept flow through your ears and your fingers. So I'm going to try to play a little solo for you on stablemates and see if I can, keep the approach tones just alive through it. And just to show you how this concept can sound when it's in your fingers, it's in your ears, and you're playing over a tune. One, two, two. I don't know, something like that. So use it freely. Just go practice. Don't think about the concept. Try to just play it. And that's such an important part when you're starting to get the technique down. You're starting to get the sound of it into your ears. You're starting to recognize it. To just break free. Try to make it music. The more you if you can make your practice music, then great. Don't make your music sound like you're practicing. So if you can practice, do the technique, turn off your head sort of, and just do the technical exercises, learn to do it on the tunes, do all that, and then use it freely. Then you want to break free. Then you want to try to make music of it. Maybe combine it with other exercises that you're working on. Say you're working on phrasing or something like that, and you're trying to play only 1 bar long phrases with 2 bars of rest in between each phrase. Do that, but also incorporate your approach tones. It depends on what you can handle, really. You don't want to take on too much either, but just some ideas for you how to do it. And then start to look for other enclosures as well. We have all the standard approach on enclosures, but you can find new ways to approach the chord tones. And an example of this is I was transcribing Joel Fromm, fantastic tenor player. If you haven't heard him, definitely go check him out. And he's a super nice guy too. Actually, we shared a backstage once because we were playing on the same festival. And they were playing, I think, before us, and we were playing after. But we had a sound check at the same time, so we were hanging out a little bit backstage. And, he was asking me about my soprano, and I was telling him that I wasn't really happy with it. I used to play Yanagasava, and I felt like it was pitched too high. And he just gave me a whole bunch of basically a lesson on sopranos and what he would recommend I buy and all that stuff. Really nice, really helpful guy. Fantastic tenor player, one of the really, really all-time greatest in my book, at least. So yeah, check out Joel Fromm. But I was transcribing him, and I got this lick from him. And part of that lick was this little motive right here. So that's basically an approach into the minor third of a G minor 7 chord. I don't know if it was G minor 7, but it was that lick in some key. So I figured, okay, what he's doing there is he's playing ba ba da ba da. So the last part of it, we recognize that. That's like chromatic, chromatic, whole step, chord tone, double chromatic from below. It's not coming from a diatonic step, so it's a double chromatic in this case. Double chromatic, diatonic above, chord tone. Ba da in the key of G minor, A flat, A, C, B flat, right? But he came from the D before, and the D, that's the next chord tone in G minor 7. So D, A flat, A, C, B flat. So we can make that an approach tone exercise. So we make it a formula. We say next chord tone, double chromatic from below, diatonic from above, landing on the chord tone. And then we apply that to all the chord tones. And then when we get up to the 7th, we can do, instead of next chord tone, we can say tension 9, like the third above, just to make it work. So check out what that sounds like. And now we can practice that in all 12 keys. Thousands of ways to do this, but that's an example of me transcribing, recognizing this concept and applying it by applying it to different chord tones and then practicing that through all 12 keys. And I took several different licks from Joel Fromm and used it this way. And I just think it's, when you know this, you don't need a teacher anymore, because you can make your own exercises based on the stuff you like. Based on the stuff you're transcribing, you can come up with the exercises that you need. That was my last slide, and now I just have one that says Q&A. I've gone through pretty much the entire concept, gotten pretty in-depth here. We're getting into some advanced territory. I hope you could follow along. If not, feel free to ask me questions. Like, now's your time to ask me anything, and I'll try my best to explain it to you. Yeah, I think this concept is like the best way to learn the traditional jazz language, to learn to play over chords, to learn to really nail the chords. I have tons of PDF resources on this, or not tons of PDF, a couple of PDF resources. That solo I just showed you on Stablemates, that's out there on Patreon. I have PDFs about the approach tone concept out there. I have the YouTube video on approach tones. That's like a 15-minute version of what we just did now. Marin asks, can you use the same concept on upper structure of chords? Yes, you totally can. That's like how it's sort of what I showed you in Stablemates, where I played it into tension 9, into tension sharp 11, and tension, well, I didn't do it to tension 13, but you can totally do that. So at that point, it's not like I would say create a exercise to play into the upper structures, but yeah, you know, if you have practiced this enough into the chord tones and you know about upper structures, it's gonna sort of happen on its own, I think. It's gonna show up into upper structure because it's gonna be in your fingers, it's gonna be in your ears, and it's gonna happen naturally. So an upper structure is basically when you have a chord, and then you put a triad on top. And that triad outlines the tensions or some fun stuff in that chord. It's a technique that I use all the time in like big band writing. I can usually have like an upper structure in the trumpets with the spread voicing in the trombones, and a cluster in the saxes or something like that. So to illustrate, I can do this on the piano here. You can do an upper structure like we did in the other case over an E flat major 7 chord. Upper upper structure on top of that could be an F major triad. Major triads usually work really well as upper structures because their sound is so strong. Like the major triad, that's like the most strong sound we have. It's the most recognizable. It's the standard. Like play a triad, you'll play a major triad, and everybody knows that sound. And it's really a prominent sound that works really well as an upper structure. So this is what an F major 7 triad sounds like over an E flat major 7 chord. So the F major triad is an upper structure to the E flat major 7 chord. Good for arranging, but also good for when you're a soloist and you're trying to play on something. The bass takes care of the roots. The piano player takes care of the thirds and sevenths, and usually a lot of tensions too. But as a saxophone player, if you can find a good mix of playing the chord tones and outlining the harmony, but also playing all the stuff on top, all the colorful notes, then that's where the magic happens. And upper structures is a good way to enable you to play those sweet notes. So yeah, that's what an upper structure is. And playing the approach tones into the upper structure, totally possible, will sort of happen naturally when you have the concept really nailed down. It can be any triad. Like, you can go crazy here. All upper structures. That was me playing random triads on top of an E flat major 7 chord. And the most common ones is like the major 7. You can play the F major triad on top, or for an altered chord, that's when you get into some really interesting stuff. Let's see. Let's do this. Or like. The last one was F major triad on top of a D7 altered chord. That gives you sharp 9 and 11. No, 5. And the flat 7th. Yeah. So they just, upper structures give you some of the tensions for free, basically. A really good technique in big band writing. Like I use it all the time. And with the trumpets on top, you have 4 trumpets in big bands. So you can play that triad in the top 3, and then you double the lead in the 4th one. Then you get a really nice and full triad on top. That will. I'm deep in big band writing these days because I'm writing like it's pretty tiring actually. I have to write 45 minutes of music for a dinner show, or the music is written, but I have to write out the horns and a lot of the strings and some orchestral parts like woodwinds, oboes, and clarinets and flutes and stuff. 45 minutes of music for big band and strings and orchestra. And I think I have like a couple of more weeks to do it. I've done like 15 minutes. And I'm in parental leave. But I'll get it done. But that's why my head is in like arranging these days. That's why I'm starting to talk about arranging when you were mentioning upper structures. And just have a 45-minute solo. Yeah, but they're looking for a full big band. Yeah. But that's a good idea. And then I do a lot of stuff for my work, and this is one of the things I do every year, to write this music that will run for an entire year as a part of that dinner show. And the next year we do a new thing. But it's I write the big band parts, and then I send it off to, I have a friend who plays trumpet and trombone, so he can record all the trumpets and all the trombones, and he's like switching trumpets to make it sound like a second trumpet player and then the third trumpet player and all that stuff. And then I record all the saxes. So I do bari sax, alto sax, and tenor sax. And sometimes there's some doubling on soprano sax as well. I don't do any flutes or clarinets, so we have someone else do that if we need that. But it's really fun to have like spent about a month writing big band music and then finally getting to go into the studio and record it all myself. I can spend as much time as I like to get it like super nice and super tight. And yeah, it's fun to record your own horn section with you playing all the parts, because then you can make it, it sounds a lot tighter because I have my phrasing, I have my way of playing stuff. And if all the saxophone players in the big band are me, then we're all going to play it the same way, and it's going to be like glued together like crazy. Anyway, I'm digressing. I think we got, everything covered on approach tones. If you have any more questions, you can hit me up now, or you can hit me up on Discord. I'm hoping to get some more action going in the Discord. We're getting some new subscribers now, which is great. Hopefully they'll find their way onto the Discord and we can chat more there. I'm hoping to make it like a motivational place too, where you can go in and say like, oh, I don't feel like practicing today, and we can all help each other stay motivated, stay on track, stay focused on what we need to practice. But I guess to close things off, when it comes to the approach tone stuff, make sure you're practicing them at your level. Which means don't jump into the complicated stuff before you've done the basics. Start with that minor 7 chord. That's also the chord in the PDF on my Patreon page. If you go to the store there, you'll find the PDF on approach tones. It's explained pretty clearly how to do the exercise, what the variations are. So, start there. Do that in all 12 keys. And don't move on until you've done that and it's tight and it's working. So keep it simple, keep the tempo slow. Speed, that comes with accuracy. So accuracy first, and then speed will come later. Don't try to do it fast. Just go slowly, go with the metronome. So I think that's like a nice way to close this live stream off. If you're all happy with if you have gotten your questions answered, thanks for joining in. Thanks for being subscribers. I'll put a poll up for the next live soon too, and we'll take it from there. Adios.